All right, so disclaimer, honestly, not only did I play and record all of this before the Paper Mario remake got announced, but it was also before the Mario RPG remake got announced. So I'm just going to say some things later on that are completely unwarranted, and I'll just go off on a rant. So don't mind me, I'm really excited. Enjoy the video. I know I've said this before, the first two Paper Mario games are a couple of my favorite games ever, and they're ones that I'll just go back and play them just every once in a while. Usually it's probably once a year or once every couple of years. I think this time it took I think it's been 3 years since I played either of them or something, and I've just been for a while feeling like I need to go back and play those. But of course, I've got my backlog, and I shouldn't be going back and playing games I've already played. But I'm kind of feeling that right now. I'm almost kind of feeling like doing a GameCube binge, but that's my problems. Even though I was already in the middle of a few games, but yeah, I felt like I needed to go back and play Paper Mario. I've been wanting it. I've been craving it, so I did. I played the first two games. The first game is, I would say, probably a bit more straightforward. I mean, it's Bowser capturing Peach again. Mario has to go rescue her, and you have to fight a bunch of Bowser's minions to save her and whatnot. They have the added the star spirits are captured, and you have to rescue them first to fight Bowser's star rod power. Whatever. There's plenty unique, but it comes with a lot of familiarity. I would say most of the bosses are pretty unique, but a lot of the enemies are oh yeah, I recognize that one. I would say there are a couple unique enemies, and the unique enemies are very standout and interesting. And in RPG fashion, a lot of enemies have very specific strengths and weaknesses, and you kind of have to build around those with your badges. And I like the badge system. You can add different, you get 2 standard attacks, and I think the way that those are balanced around each other is very nice. It's very good. You get you start with your jump, and it's okay, you jump on an enemy, do 1 damage. Okay, cool, whatever. And then eventually, once you get through a little bit of tutorial stuff, you get maybe it's not tutorial stuff. It's just whatever prologue stuff. You get a hammer, and that also just does 1 damage. And it's okay, what's the trade-off here? Well, jump, you can hit flying stuff, and hammer, it's you can hit ground stuff, and you can protect yourself from enemies with spikes on them. And it's okay, that's an interesting way to introduce those, so then you have a trade-off. And at first that's really all you get, and it's that's the only trade-off. But the fact that it introduces those that early is nice. And then what really shines with how things work when you get action commands is, well, now you can do more damage by pressing buttons while you're attacking or doing whatever the action command is. For the hammer, you have to hold the stick a certain way, and then for the jump, you just press A as you're hitting an enemy. Although in the first one, the timing is a little weird. You have to hit it a pretty good distance before you actually hit the enemy, which is odd, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a weird programming issue, or that's the only way they could get it to work. I don't know. I don't know how it works or why they did it that way, but whatever. But then, anyway, once you get that action command, now you have more trade-offs with your jump and your hammer. Now, jump, they both do 2 damage, but your jump splits it up because you have to bounce on your enemy twice. Whereas hammer just does more flat damage. And the trade-off there is, with your hammer, you can pierce through enemy defenses better, but with jumping, you can flip some enemies on their back, or if you get any sort of attack buffs, those attack buffs can give you the potential to do overall more damage. Forgetting defense, if an enemy has no defense, your jump has potential to do even more damage than your hammer if you do it correctly. Whereas your hammer, still better at breaking through defenses, but less damage overall. So there's just lots of good trade-offs, and I like the way that works. And additionally, the damage numbers are just smaller than a lot of other standard RPGs, which I really like because it's a lot more manageable. When you're when you're fighting something and you get hit with oh, here's 57 damage. It's why 57? That's really odd. Or 143, and it's why these big numbers? I don't know what to take from this. I know a lot of RPGs have some sort of high roll, low roll system, but starting off with 1 damage, 2 damage, that's really easy to follow. It's so straightforward. And then when I want to add buffs or when something has defense,
I can do easy math. I don't have to be like, okay, what's my high roll on this? What's my low roll on this? Like, I don't have to worry about any of that. I just go, okay, what are these numbers? What are these numbers? Okay, addition, subtraction, bam, got it. I don't really know how many, I don't play a lot of turn-based games, so maybe there's more like Paper Mario, but I don't know how many turn-based games like this have just low number systems. I honestly can't think of a lot, because I know like the entirety of Final Fantasy is just like the high number system, and you know, Pokemon is its own special thing, but I really do like the low numbers, and I wish more RPGs would do that, because I don't play a lot of RPGs, but I still don't see that a lot, especially for the more popular ones, like the ones that I would hear more about, the ones I would see more about. I don't see the low number system as much, and I don't see action commands as much. If there were more games with action commands, I'd probably want to play them, but I still think I would be comparing them to Paper Mario because it's got such a good system. I mean, you have like 2 attacks with just such good trade-offs, like air-based enemies and ground-based enemies, and then you have, you know, spiked enemies or fire enemies or like stuff that you can't jump on, but I could probably go off on this for a while, but I just love the balancing system. Because it works. It just works. And then the badges add to that, you know, increasing your attack or giving you new moves and like basically just boosting the strengths and weaknesses, not the weaknesses necessarily, but mostly boosting the strength of your existing attacks and just making it overall just great system. I just love the system in the first game. Well, I guess in both of the first 2 games, but of course the first game, it's the first one, so it's, I would say, a little underdeveloped. It looks like they were trying something out, they were trying to get the basics down, and it was like, this could be developed a little bit more. And, you know, I mean, they obviously went on to make a sequel, so there you go. But the first one was a very, very, very strong, like, starting point. And then, of course, for level ups, it's like, okay, well, how do we manage level ups? Because a lot of stuff, it's like, okay, you leveled up, you get more HP, you get more attack, or whatever, more mana, or whatever, whatever similar type of system you got. And with Mario, he's got HP, FP, and BP. That's it. HP is, of course, your health. FP is basically your ability to do any sort of, like, unique moves that aren't your standard jump and hammer. And then BP is badge points, which lets you use more badges. And you can level these up in any order that you want. All you have to do is get 100 star points from defeating enemies. And, you know, a lot of RPGs have like weird scaling level up systems where it's like, okay, to get to this level, you have to get this much XP. To get to this level, you have to get this much XP. And it's like, why? Why not just like make it simpler? And with star points, it's way simpler. You just have to get 100. And, you know, as you go further, I'm sure there's some sort of background math involved, which is fine. But in like, for visually, for the person playing, it's, oh, I just have to get to 100. Super easy, right? Again, these like low numbers, very straightforward. I love it. And yes, as you get further and further, enemies kind of scale with how much you get from them. So like, let's say early on, a Goomba gives you like 3 star points for defeating one. When you get to the next level, they're gonna give you 1. Like, they're worthless. Like, you'll get 1 for the whole battle. And then like, let's say you get to level 3 and they're giving you like 5 per, and then you get to level like 7 and you go back to those ones, they're going to give you like 1 per fight. It's great. I don't have to think much. I can just play the game and be like, ooh, I get this many. Okay, well, I'm going to go to these later enemies because they're going to give me more. Whatever it is, it works out. The one thing I don't really like about the level up system is you can eventually reach a max level. I don't think that exists in Thousand Year Door. I don't think. But with your 3 things that you can level up, you can reach a maximum. And that's a little disappointing for me, because when I play through, I'm like, I want to, you know, put a little bit into HP, a little bit into FP so that I can actually do stuff. And then I just want to throw a bunch of points into BP. And I think it's got like a max of 30 or something like that. It's not very much, all things considered. And it's like, dang, like I want to use all these badges and I can't because they're in use. Like I've got a bunch of badges used already, and I can't do anymore because I can't level that up anymore. I have to level up this other stuff, and it's a little disappointing why they have like a level cap for each of them. But you know, whatever. I guess I can get over it. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the best either. Level locations in the first one are, I like that they're kind of all interconnected. There's not a lot of instances where you just have to take like a random pipe to go somewhere. Most of the time it's like, oh, go from Toad Town Square and go this way, and you'll just end up there. All right, cool. I mean, sometimes you gotta like take a train or sail across the ocean, but it's kind of like, it's like you're going there, you're physically going there. It's not so much I'm taking a random warp pipe and showing up somewhere that I don't know how it connects to the rest of it. Whereas I know the second game, that's a lot of what it does. It's just like, oh, here's a warp pipe, I guess, whatever, who cares? Like, okay, cool. But I like the world feeling interconnected, even though a lot of the locations are pretty simplistic. The kind of level concepts are pretty simple. I mean, the first one is like, oh, here's like a grassy area, and then you go to a fortress. Second level is a desert, very unique, cool. Third one is a spooky forest. The fourth one is the Shy Guy toy box, which was up to that point one of the more unique levels. But it's really just a lot of one concept and then not much deeper than that. And the concepts are very simple for the most part. I mean, it's still good, but anyway, the way the game progresses just overall is kind of simple. It's like, go here, fight the bad guy, go here, fight the bad guy. Occasionally there's like some sort of puzzle you have to do to get through things. The second level, you have to find the tomb in the middle of the desert. And the third one, just to even get to your next location, you have to go through a spooky forest with like a puzzle in it. And when I was a child, that scared the crap out of me. But, you know, going through it as an adult, it's like, I like the aesthetic, but it's not creepy. It's just kind of like basic. I do have to say a lot of the themes, like the musical themes and stuff, just the music, I guess, the soundtrack is amazing. I love the soundtrack of the first game. I will literally like, I can look at a picture, I can a picture of the game, and I can just hear it. I'm just like, oh, I know that theme. That's a good one. Honestly, like, it has a lot of some of my favorite themes in the series. Whereas, go to like some of the other games, and I'm just like, I don't remember this song, or oh yeah, that's one. They're not as in my head as the first Paper Mario OST. I think my favorite in the whole game is probably the Crystal Kings theme. Ooh, that one's just very nice. Writing the first one's pretty basic. Again, like it's a lot of very basic things that just work, even though they're so basic. There's a lot of puzzles, but they're usually pretty simple. The dialogue is usually pretty straightforward. It's like, we're doing this, we're going here, and that's it. Like, there's not much mystery, there's not much intrigue. It's just kind of straightforward. I mean, there is still a pretty good cast of characters, but a very simple cast of characters. And they're just about all like recognizable Mario characters or enemies or what have you. Like, as far as partners go, you get a Koopa, a Koopa, a Bob-omb. You get Watt, I think, is like the only like really unique one that I don't think resembles anything. I could be wrong, but you get a Cheep Cheep, you get a Boo, you get a Lakitu. Just very basic partners, just that are just enemy types for the most part, which again works fine, but they're very straightforward. The first game just altogether very straightforward. There's a few unique things, but for the most part, not a whole lot going on. That being said, it's very fun. The difficulty is actually, I think, higher than the second game. I think the difficulty is probably higher than Thousand Year Door, in part because later bosses can just heal themselves just because. I would say that's probably one of the more frustrating things I had to deal with when I was fighting some of the later bosses. But the game's not incredibly difficult if you have any idea what you're doing. My wife has beaten it, and she has like no confidence in her gaming skills. But you know, it's a simple RPG for children, so I still think it's like a decent challenge, but it's not overwhelming by any means. And there's, depending on your badge combination, you can make it easier or harder for yourself. So, you know, whatever. One thing I really liked about the first Paper Mario, when it was the first one to do it, before Thousand Year Door came out, I liked the idea that Peach gets to do stuff too. I mean, she's not doing a whole lot, but she's doing stuff like, okay, where's the next star spirit? Like, let me point you in this direction. I'll, send a messenger to tell you where to go next. That was amazing. It's like, yes, she's not fighting anyone or doing anything like that, but even just gathering information, like, she's doing something. She's not just the damsel in distress. She's not just being captured. She's doing something. And some of these segments with Peach are actually quite good. The disguising yourself as a guard one, I wish that there had been a little bit more of that, because that was a really cool idea, but whatever. But like at one point she has to go do a quiz. At one point she's just like walking around overhearing guards. Sometimes, like one time she reads Bowser's diary. Like pretty simple stuff, but she's still having a place in the game. She's not just waiting to be rescued, which is boring if that's all that it is. Yeah, the first Paper Mario is very fun, and like they had a clear idea of what they were going for. It was before they had like fully committed, I think, to making it a Paper Mario game, because I think in Japan it was called Mario's Story, but they do still have like a couple paper related jokes or like gags or whatever, and but still, overall there's not a whole lot of paper stuff going on. But then there's of course Thousand Year Door, which is it's a like major cult classic. Apparently the GameCube didn't do great, which amazes me because it's got so many amazing games. But Thousand Year Door is like my favorite GameCube game, and that's saying a lot because I got a lot of GameCube games that are of my favorites. And I will likely never get rid of my GameCube because I love it so much. Thousand Year Door is like a near perfect sequel. Like a lot of sequels, what happens? Well, certain features get removed. Maybe they try to change how things have played out. Like they're not quite staying true to what the first one did, and maybe it's because they're trying to improve things and maybe it doesn't always come out that way. Removal of features and just kind of like overall changing of the tone or just the way things go, that can often like kind of drag on a sequel. But I think Thousand Year Door has way more positives than it does negatives. You get action commands right away, which is great. You notice right away that partners are a bit more distinct. I mean, Goombario, what was his whole thing? He was a Goomba with a hat on. All right. Goombella, she's got a whole adventuring gear going on, and yeah, that's more unique. I mean, like Goombario's sister just had like a bow to indicate that she was a girl, and Goombella, like she's got a ponytail, she's got hair, she's got like a helmet, she's got like an ascot, I think. Is that what that is? Anyway, and then Koops, he's got like a sweater on, and he's got like a bandage on his nose to indicate that he's a rough and tumble child or whatever. I don't know. Japan has weird ideas for like child design, and it's like always the same thing. And then you've got like Bobbery, who's got like a ship steering wheel on him. He's got like a sailor's hat. And it's like, sure, you got some typical Mario characters or enemies, what have you, as your partners, but they're so much more distinct in the second one. It's so great. And not only that, like they have more unique personalities as well. Like, yeah, sure, in the first Paper Mario, all the characters had something going on, like they had their motivations or whatever. Well, actually, no, I don't think all of them had any like sort of motivations. They got introduced and then that was it. Not much else happened, I think. I don't remember if they like had much to say for the most part. Whereas in Thousand Year Door, there are tons and tons of branching, like, well, not necessarily branching, but tons of different like dialogue for each of your partners. You go into any one cutscene and there's a dialogue option for each one of the partners that you would have available up to that point. And that alone can like tell a different story than if you were to have a different partner. And that must have been a lot of work, and I commend the developers for going through all that effort, because not only did they have to write different dialogue for each party member, they have to add that little bit of flair that makes it unique to that party member. Like you have to put their personality in it, and it just makes for such a fun experience because you can go through the game many different times and see new lines of dialogue, and that's just fun. I like that. I gotta commend whoever like put all that in and went through all that effort. Like a lot of RPGs, it'll either be like whatever party members are with you, they'll just say their line even if they're not in the party right now, or I don't know, or maybe they'll say pretty similar stuff and it's not too different, but just the amount of uniqueness that goes into it with that, I just really like it. This time around with the level up system, there's no cap on anything to my knowledge. At least I've never found one, but it's so nice because then I can just level up badge points and then just stomp on everyone. In the first game, you always got your hammer first, and in Thousand Year Door, you always get your jump upgrades first. Because in both of them, you get like, you upgrade your jump twice, your hammer twice, and you just kind of find them throughout the game. And I don't know what went into the decision of choosing what order to upgrade them in, but it is nice to get the jump upgrades first because those are so much more useful, especially if the enemy has less defense. The plot and the areas that you go to are a lot more distinct this time around. They're not just, here's a desert, here's a jungle, here's a spooky forest. It's more like it's more unique and kind of complex areas. I mean, the first level is pretty straightforward. It's, you have a Koopa village with a castle again. Okay, whatever. But then level 2, you go to this great tree that's black and white, and the bad guys have, installed like doors and stuff, and they've like invaded the tree, and they're trying to look for the crystal star. Level 3, you basically go through a combat tournament that is like corrupt and has like several conspiracies going on, and then you have to fight your way to the top while also trying to figure out what these conspiracies are. Level 4 is kind of like another spooky forest area, but all the villagers there are getting turned into pigs, and you have to, fight this guy who's turning them into pigs. And then not only that, but he steals your identity, so then you have to get your identity back. I mean, there's so much more to each of these, and I mean, again, not every single one, but they're just more complex for the most part, and I really like that. Not only that, but with your special gauge. In the first one, it was just kind of like, oh, here's an ability for your special. Like, okay, here, it happens, and that's it. And the abilities themselves aren't bad, but they're very basic. There's no action commands for them, and it's just kind of boring. But in Thousand Year Door, you have action commands for each of your special abilities, so you can make them do better or worse. So kind of each one of them ends up being a little more effective overall, just because you have to have input, and it's so nice. And there are a few that are like way stronger than others. I think one of my favorite is the third one that you get, the gold star, because that helps you buff your attack and defense for you and your partner. But there's also like a couple that will heal you. There's just a ton that just do damage. In the first one, there were a couple that did like status effects, I think. But in Thousand Year Door, I can only think of the second one that gives a status effect, unless you count the, the sixth one? Is that the Garnet Star? I don't remember. And then like that one just gives the status effect of dead. So it's like whatever. But yeah, I think there's only the one status effect. Otherwise, it's like damage, healing, buffing, whatever. But I do like having more input. And then not only that, by doing your action commands correctly, you can build up your special meter faster. And not only that, you can do, the first game had focus, which I think in Japanese must have been pray, because that's what you're doing. But they're like, we can't have religion in here, so let's just do focus. But now you have appeal, because there's more focus on the audience aspect. First game, I don't think you didn't have an audience. But in the second one, Thousand Year Door, you have an audience, and you can get more audience members. Your audience members can leave. They can throw stuff at you, good or bad. And again, by doing your action commands, you get increased special gauge. And you can also do stylish moves, which once you figure those out, it just gets so much easier, because then your special gauge fills up so fast and you don't even have to use your appeal. It's so nice. Honestly, that's another thing I wish I would see more in a lot of turn-based games. It's like, let me clown on people. Let me style on them. That is such a good feature. I just love it. Also, the action commands this time around are more clean and precise. It's not like you have to press it a full like quarter second before you hit the enemy. Like, you press it right on, and it's nice. The music in this one was not as good to me personally. Maybe just my bias. I didn't like the music at the OST as much, but it's still got some like banger songs. There are still some that are very recognizable to me, some that I really, really like, give the proper ambiance, whatever. It's just really good. Just kind of the overall tone of the game is a bit more unique, different. I mean, Rogueport alone is just weird. It's kind of run down. You kind of, you got a bunch of like weird characters. You've got a mafia. Have I mentioned, I don't know if I've mentioned the, maybe I have. Maybe I've mentioned the family where the dad is a failed writer and the mom gambles her money away all day and like neglects her family. And she's like, no, they're fine. And it's like, no, they're not. There's a noose in the town square. Like, I mean, there's no way that if they tried to make this again, like now, like minus the fact that they basically killed what Paper Mario used to be. There's no way that just tonally they would make a Mario game like this ever again. Like, they would never have a noose in the town square and, trying to summon a demon. Like, that wouldn't happen. Peach once again does stuff, but it's not so much telling Mario where to go. It doesn't actually hold much importance, because Mario just looks at the map of the Crystal Star and goes like, oh, I'll go there. So it feels like Peach does a little bit less. I mean, yes, she's causing mischief, but not nearly as much. The whole teaching a robot to love thing is odd, very odd, but That's another thing. Where the first Paper Mario took itself a little bit seriously, but could be like it could be silly once in a while. Thousand Year Door is just like it takes itself both more seriously and way less seriously. Like I mean, there are jokes everywhere, and half of it, I don't know if it was like a localization thing, or just like also a localization thing where it's like, well, there's a joke here, but we got to translate it, so we got to make it unique. It just screams early 2000s for most of it. It's just like, wow, ooh, these jokes are like super lame, but like in kind of an endearing way. I mean, it's not the worst. I have a sneaking suspicion that I don't know what it is all in Japanese, but I have a sneaking suspicion that if a game were to be localized in this faction today, I'd probably hate it, or at least I'd hate the localization, and I'd like be spiteful of it, and I'd make fun of the localizers, because that happens a lot now. A lot of bad localizations. It almost feels like a 4Kids dub is what it feels like. But again, like this is a nostalgia game from my childhood. I'm more forgiving. I mean, there's a couple things that I can understand them not wanting to translate, especially back then, like the fact that Vivian's actually a boy, or that's really the only one I can think of. But like nowadays, who knows what they would do with that? They'd probably just make her a girl. Who knows? Maybe they'd make her trans. I don't know. I don't really know what Vivian's whole thing going on in Japanese really was, but I don't really care. I've always played the version where she's a girl, not a cross-dresser, but whatever. I think that has something to do with some Japanese trend or whatever, thought or son or whatever. I don't remember what that fashion trend is called, but I digress. She is the best partner though. I like in most aspects, minus the fact that Goombella has tattle. I mean, come on. Vivian's the best. There are a couple like features that Thousand Year Door added, which I'm really into. There's a few more like badge types. They did take a few badge types away, which is a little disappointing, but they also I think they made up for it in a couple areas. Like there used to be like a jump charge and a hammer charge, and now it's just, there's just a regular charge badge. Again, there are a few badges in the first game that I think got taken out for one reason or another. Like, for example, the whole spin move that you can do in the overworld in the first game. They just took that out completely. Why, I don't know, because it was a nice way to move faster. But I guess you get Yoshi early enough that it's fine. There is an extra partner that you can get, which is really cool. And you have to do something at the Trouble Center for that. I think in the first Paper Mario, there was a character that you could go to and just do his errands or whatever. But in Thousand Year Door, you have the Trouble Center, and the Trouble Center is fantastic. I never really do a whole lot of troubles on it, because it's like, I just want to get through the game. I want to play it. I don't want to, be doing fetch quests, because that's not my thing. But for anyone who does like that kind of stuff, it seems plenty good. And there are a couple that I would do, like getting Zesty the cookbook, and, getting the extra party member. But other than that, whatever. You also get the Pit of 100 Trials, which was the first in this one, got brought back in Super Paper Mario, and honestly, it's a great feature. Although, I have beaten it before, just fine. This time around, I struggled a lot with it. I actually maybe I was doing it too early, but after chapter, what chapter was that? 6, I think. I think after chapter 6, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the pit now. I think I'm well equipped enough. I have a strategy. I was basically starting off this time. I've done different strategies a few different times when I've been playing. Sometimes I'll just focus on being consistent, at all areas, with attack, defense, and whatnot. In one, I tried a strategy where you just equip a bunch of, I don't remember what it's called, but it's when Mario's health is in danger, then he just does more damage. And you equip 30 of those, and then you just do 99 per hit. And it's bleh. And then you can basically one-shot half the bosses in the game. Actually, you can one-shot all but one boss in the game, or two, I don't know. You can one-shot most bosses, and it's just wow. But it's one that you don't really get access to until later, so whatever. But this time around, I was okay, I'm gonna have a strategy where I use the charge badge a lot, and just boost my attack constantly until I, think I've gone enough, and then I will just power bounce, which power bounce is another one of the best badges in the game. I don't know why I said another. I don't think I've mentioned any of the other best ones, but power bounce is the best badge in the game, because you just, if you're consistent with it, you can just do so much damage. Each enemy type has a cap for how many bounces you can do, but good god, even so, you can get some major damage off on like even bosses. There are bosses that once you charge enough up, you can basically one-shot them. Like, not one-shot them, but like one-turn them. And I tried to go with that strategy, but I forgot what difficulty level the pit was at. I thought, oh, you know, it's fine. I'll just do whatever. You can't just do whatever. Oh my goodness. I forgot how hard the pit was. Like, I've done it before. I've done it no problem. But for some reason, like the first time through, I failed like, it was either past 90 or it was in like the high 80s. I got stuck with a status effect where I couldn't move and I couldn't defend. And it just sucked because I was screwed by that point. And they're like, when you get to like level 80, enemies just have high damage. And there's unique enemy types that you never see anywhere else. And it's just like, this is awful. But then the second time around, I'm like, okay, I got it this time. I'm going to strategize better. And then I got all the way to Bonetail, and I died because I forgot that his fire does piercing damage. Woof. And then at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give up because I'm not going to bang my head against a wall. It's not necessary to beat the game. I've beaten it before, so I don't have to, like, prove anything. Whatever. So at any rate, other than that, like, I didn't really have much trouble throughout the game. I wanted to find more charge badges, but you can only get them from like a couple enemy types in one area, and then you have to have the secret party member to steal the badges from them, and it's just like more trouble than it's worth to have to try to farm them. So, you know, whatever. It didn't affect me that much. I almost forgot. There's like little Bowser segments where you play through classic Mario levels with Bowser. I feel like it was a great idea that could have been done a little bit better or a little bit more, but you know, it's fine. I guess it fulfills its purpose. Not amazingly, but fine. He's also following you through most of the game, like trying to catch up, and he's always behind. And seeing as he's not the main villain this time around, it's kind of endearing. You know, like in the first game, he was such a major threat, and then this time around, he's just like a bumbling idiot. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on in the game. It's got better dialogue. I mean, it's still kind of silly, jokey, whatever, but it's got better dialogue, better story, better combat. A few areas where I would say it, you know, maybe is a little weaker or it doesn't improve much. But overall, near perfect sequel, vast improvement. Honestly, I play this one more than I play the first one just because it's that good. I honestly I wish that Nintendo would figure out that people want more of this. People want Mario RPGs. Like, I never really played the Mario and Luigi games, and actually, no, I played a little bit of one of them, and I kind of get it, but I also, this is more my bread and butter. Paper Mario is just, of all the exceptions I make for RPGs and like other turn-based games when I play them, this is the biggest exception. This is the one I like the most. This is the one I want more of. And then after Super happened, they pretty much just killed any, like, hope of that ever happening. And they're just like, oh, hey, how can we make things less interesting and just worse? Okay, and then it's like, hey, how do we make this as slow as possible? Cool. Okay, how can we make this as bog standard as possible while the people like also working on the game who like have the passion, have the ideas and want to do more stuff? How can they fit as much in without changing any of what the enemy types are? Like, oh, we got Koopas, Bob-ombs, and just regular stuff that's not unique. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be ranting about Origami King, because I didn't play it because I saw what it had to offer and went, nah, ain't about that life. It's probably better than Sticker Star, to be honest, because I have heard horror stories about Sticker Star. I've also heard horror stories about Color Splash, but not as bad as Sticker Star. I'm guessing of the new Paper Mario games, Sticker Star is probably the worst, just with some of the things I've heard. But yeah, I haven't played any of them since Super. I did play Super. Super is good. I didn't play it this time around, but it's got like the classic. It's got like the good Paper Mario writing. It's got a intriguing story. The characters are amazing. Lots of unique characters and areas as well. Partners are less interesting, but I can see where they wanted to go. They had their concept of flipping the world, and they're like, well, we got to fit it in somehow, so we'll just do it like a classic Mario game to some degree. And I get it, but I don't really like it. I wish they would go back to the old Paper Mario formula, because they had near perfected it with Thousand Year Door, and they could just do that again. Or they could like remaster the first game, or not remaster it, but like remake it, like give it a more modern aesthetic. I know they won't. I know they don't care. I mean, they released the first one on the Virtual Console, but not the Virtual Console, whatever the Nintendo Switch Online BS is. I don't know. I'm salty. Just ignore me. Yeah, it was nice to play one of my favorite games again. I'm going to do probably a little more of that, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, I've already got my setup out, so I might as well. So I guess look forward to more GameCube games or other related nostalgic stuff in the future at some point, because I will never finish my backlog ever. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed and have a great day.